Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Kay, Ale and Stevie. And Sid Lowe is at home in London, and I asked him what he had for dinner, and he said it wasn't chocolate tonight, which suggests that all he had last night for dinner was chocolate bars. Sid?
Well, look, it wasn't so much that all I had was chocolate bars, was that at one point, and this is a fabulous mum thing to do, I said to my mum, who, by the way, because of COVID, I've not seen for almost 2 years, have you got any chocolate? And she did that brilliant mum thing of saying, yeah, I might have. And she produced this enormous cardboard box with about hundreds and hundreds of chocolate bars in it, of all different types. And at this stage, I feel like I should make this point very clearly. There is no chocolate in the world to match dairy milk. And hundreds of chocolate bars. There were Crunchies in there were Lion bars, Dairy Milk, Kit Kats, even those funny mints, you know, those long thin finger things. And it was just magnificent. And I just thought it was a brilliant performance from my mother. And so today I was tempted to just not eat anything, just spend the entire day eating chocolate bars. But I would like to make very clear that I avoided that temptation and didn't do so.
Well, you could just send them our way, right?
I know, I really could do that. Funnily enough, when I was at university, a friend of mine, well, actually a friend of my brother's, her dad worked in the factory, in the biscuit factory of a very famous, in Britain at least, a very famous chocolate-covered biscuit known as a club, and I'm sure Stevie would have eaten many club biscuits in his time.
If you like a
chocolate on your biscuit, join our club.
Join our club. Exactly. And basically, all the cast-offs from the factory would turn up sort of every couple of weeks at my university hall of residence in just a great massive cardboard box full of club biscuits that for whatever reason didn't make the cut. Now, they weren't good enough to go for the shops, but they were sure as hell good enough for me to eat them.
Oh, I mean, this is like this for Ali Moreno right now. It's just going over his head.
But it's going over my head. However, when you hear Stevie salivate the way that he is right now, making the noises that he's making, you say, well, this must be special.
Do you know what I used to do? Do you know what I used to do? When I was at school, my mum used to buy clubs. So what I used to do was, I used to go into the class and I'd sit and I'd unwrap the whole thing, take the cover off, undo all the silver paper, eat the biscuit, and then I'd put it back together carefully with silver paper, put the top on, and then leave it in the desk 100%. For somebody in the next class to walk in and go, yeah, somebody's left a chocolate biscuit, and there'd be nothing inside it.
Right,
I used to do it all the time.
We'll get to your questions.
Stevie's so right, because the little silver paper on the inside was so perfectly folded, wasn't it? It was so square that you could put it back together and it looked like the chocolate bar was still inside it. It was just such a perfect square. There's another university one which I probably shouldn't admit to, but here we go as we're on Extra Time, and let's hope that no one's listening to us. In the vending machine in the hall of residence where I lived for my first year of university, they sold Twixes, which are not my favourite chocolate bar, but you know, they're a chocolate bar and I'm certainly not going to say no to them. And for some reason this vending machine had a flaw. And those Twixes were selling for 2p, even though it officially said they were like 50p or whatever they were. And every morning they would refill the vending machine at 8 o'clock. And every morning at 7:59, I'd be standing outside with a pocket full of 2p coins, waiting for them to fill this thing up. And as soon as it was filled, like boom, 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 20 Twix bars, thanks very much. They must have wondered why every night the only chocolate bar that was sold out daily by 8:01 was the Twix.
The Sid Lowe Twix definitely fits. Right, we've got to get to your questions. Ale, why Copa America matches are so physical? As a neutral, it was very hard to watch the final. The players were more on the ground than playing the ball.
It's a fair assessment, but it all has to do with the fact that these are rivalries that there's an emotional component to it. And there's a physicality that goes with it as well, and that has been part of those games historically. The other thing that doesn't help is that the field conditions were not great in Brazil throughout the tournament, certainly were not in the final either. And so if the field doesn't allow you to play, if you don't actually have the players on the field, when you think about this version of Argentina, it wasn't a bunch of playmakers. Those guys through the midfield were there for a reason. That was to maul Neymar, and they did that very well. And to their credit, that's the way that they wanted to play, and that's how they were going to win, and that's how they won. So I take nothing away from Argentina. But you look at the makeups of the teams, and Argentina in particular, it match the way that the field forced you to play, and that is, let's make it physical, let's compete for 50-50s, let's win those challenges, let's frustrate Brazil. That's how we're going to win, and that's how they won.
And let's get Messi his trophy, and it happens. Ale and Sid. Sid, I'll come to you. What can you tell us about Bryan Gil, who Tottenham are close to signing for 25 million plus Eric Lamela? Is this a smart transfer for Spurs?
I must admit, I think the fee is very high. But he's very, very exciting. He's very, very talented. He is a player, it's true. He's a player that's erratic. He's a player that there is a possibility that this doesn't work out as well as you would like, but he's very talented. He's very enjoyable to watch. He's kind of an old-fashioned winger. He's a guy that will go outside, that will dribble people. And I say dribble because I really do mean he will dribble around people. He's not a winger that knocks it past you and runs beyond you. He's not a winger that comes inside and runs beyond you. He's a winger that will go round defenders rather than beyond them. And then quite often he's one of those old-fashioned wingers in a way that he'll go round a defender and stop and wait and say, do you want to have another go then? And wait for the defender to go back to him and do it again. And so he's very, very fun to watch. I think he's young enough that there's rightly a belief that he can develop even further. And so in that sense, this could, in a year's time, feel like an absolutely inspired signing. Although that said, I must admit, I do think it's quite a lot of money for a young player that there are one or two doubts about. But if he gets it right, he's going to be, at the very least, he's going to be a lot of fun.
Especially with the nice hair as well, Bryan Gil. You see him going to the Premier League?
Is that the nice hair?
It was the nice fluffy hair, wasn't it?
The nice hair. I can relate to that, the nice hair. I think whoever he ends up with has to find that balance in between not taking the magic away from his game, but adding a little bit of simplicity in that those moments in which he gets around a defender, he doesn't come back to get around the defender again. That getting around that initial defender and then putting the ball into a dangerous area, he's done his job. And there's value to that. So don't take away the magic, add simplicity, and that may just make him a better player long term.
Sid, another one for you. Can Coutinho be considered the worst signing for Barcelona? Not only that he's a flop, but also that he came from the bench, scored 2 and assisted 1 to make it 8-2 against Bayern.
Yeah, I mean, that must really stick in the throat for Barcelona fans, and apology for the fact that I'm laughing just thinking about it. But yeah, imagine that. You've got this guy who helps you, helps your opponents to inflict upon you one of the worst defeats in your history. I think what that does do, by the way, is his role in that Bayern Munich team, while it wasn't as a starter, but it was still, you know, an important role in a team that won the European Cup. I think it tells you something that says that this isn't just because he's a bad player. It absolutely isn't because he's a bad player that things haven't gone well at Barcelona. It's about the context, about the team he's in, it's about the difficulties, it's about the pressure, it's about all of those kind of things. This is still a very, very talented footballer, but there's no doubt that it's a talented footballer for whom they spent too much money, for whom they didn't have a natural place in the team, for whom he didn't necessarily always settle. And I, by the way, am a believer in the fact that the first 5 months of Barcelona are actually very good, and I think we've forgotten them really, really quickly with Coutinho. But it hasn't worked, and I think the best solution for everyone is that he finds a club where he's comfortable and where he feels important and where he's able to play the kind of role that I think those of us who've seen him outside of Barcelona still believe that he can play.
Stevie, Liverpool could have never expected this to happen with Coutinho, surely.
I don't think anybody did. The way he played in his last 2 seasons at Liverpool, nobody thought that this was going to be a bust. Everybody thought that he was going to either keep them where they were or make them better. Just sometimes it's the wrong fit, and that's what's happened to him. He is a great player, he's shown that he's a great player, but you've got to put a player in a position where he's going to succeed, and that just never happened at Barcelona.
Next up, fashion. After Jan's questionable wardrobe choice on yesterday's show, it got me wondering, which former teammate of Ale and Stevie had the worst fashion sense? And before I ask you that, just to say, Craig Burley said that even you wouldn't wear this, Stevie.
I would wear that.
Oh, yeah.
I'd wear it to bed.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's a pair of pants that go with that. That make pyjamas.
Is that velour? Is that what that is?
I think it looks like it, doesn't it?
I think it is velour.
Very comfortable.
Flannel or velour. It looks
no,
like
it's not
velour.
flannel. That's velour.
That's velour,
yeah.
definitely.
That is velour. Go on, Ali.
It's moss. It's moss. It's not velour at all. It's made of moss.
I mean, it's definitely one of those that if you caress it gently, it certainly changes to a darker sort of shade, right? That's what we're talking about here. Yes.
I'd be interested what the colour is on it. You know, when you see the colours on the tag, what colour this would be classed as. Answers on a postcard, please. Ale, worst fashion sense among your former teammates?
I had a teammate, who knows what he's doing these days, with Chivas USA, Nicol, who was my roommate at one point. And it wasn't so much the fashion sense as much as it was, he looked like the Charlie Brown character that looks like dirt is around him, or like it has this cloud of dust all over him, and nothing ever really matched, but and things just were just disheveled. It was just like the clothes hadn't been ironed, the pants, shirt was like not tucked all the way. The whole thing didn't quite work, but it kind of matched his personality because he was sort of a laid-back guy that didn't really care all that much about how he looked. So he didn't care, it didn't matter, and he was happy.
What about you, Stevie?
At the Revs, there was two guys at the Revs, right? Leo Cullen and Jay Heat. Ooh. So they were mates. They were always together. And all of a sudden, they started wearing everything inside out. So they'd walk in, if they had T-shirts on, the T-shirt would be inside out. Or like even like a normal shirt, it would be inside out and the buttons would be done.
Right. Oh, what? It was fashion?
I've no idea. Oh. But the two of them started doing it, and they'd come into training and come to games, and all the tops were always inside out.
I had a teammate as well with, you remember him, Peter Vianas?
Yep.
With the Galaxy?
Right.
He would wear this velour suits. This track suits, velour suits.
Yeah, the velour's usually saved for the wags.
Well, no, I can tell you he was not a wag. And yeah, he would walk around with these things that look very comfortable, but it wouldn't be the sort of thing that you'd be wearing around. But he was comfortable.
Stevie, I thought you might give us a Liverpool player.
I can't remember that far back, to be honest with you. I mean, Barry Venison used to always come in with some strange stuff, but he kind of carried it off.
Right.
But listen, all the Scandinavian guys were always questionable.
So that hasn't changed then?
Well, they always, listen, it didn't matter what they had on, right? They always had white socks. So sometimes it looked a little strange.
But white socks is all the rage again now.
Is it?
I mean, I say it again, I don't know if it was.
It wasn't the rage back then.
But it is at the moment with the youngsters.
But it was for the Scandinavian boys.
Maybe he did have white socks on under that velour, under the desk. We'll have to find out.
Probably.
It's like, I tell you what Jan is wearing. It's sort of like one of those snuggy things that is like a blanket slash...
A slanky or slinky.
I don't know. I think it's a snuggie is what it's called. I'm sure it's very comfortable.
I know. Go on, Stevie.
Not so. In the 80s, particularly, you wore your own gear. No, like today, you see all the teams turning up, and they've all got either the same tracksuit or they've got a club blazer, the whole thing. Back then, it was your own gear. And when you got dressed in the morning to go to the game with your own gear, you checked to make sure everything was all right.
Right.
Because if somebody spotted something, either they didn't like it or whatever, you got absolutely annihilated. And we used to sit on the bus watching everybody coming on with what gear they had on, just to get somebody and then dive on them and slaughter them. I mean, you were actually thinking about it, getting on the bus. If you had a new suit on, I hope nobody takes the mickey in it, man.
Oh, wait. I remember one. Troy Dyack, San Jose Earthquakes. This guy showed up with a leather vest, like a cowboy leather vest, without a shirt on. And it was my first game with San Jose Earthquakes. I'd just been traded there. Oh. And his cowboy hat, leather vest on, leather pants, cowboy boots, shirtless, and I just said, I can't believe this guy's my teammate. Troy Dyack.
That's what it's called. All the gear, no idea. I'm going to be so quick with this last one. I already know the answer to it, and I will put my house on it. Sid, during your time in Spain, who would you say has been the best player in La Liga, not named Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo?
Write it down.
Dani Alves.
Did I write it down or not?
You did, I.
I knew it would be Dani Alves. See, I know my Sid. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us on the latest edition of Extra Time. Be sure to always catch it on YouTube.
Was that a magic trick?
It was a magic trick. ESPN FC is available daily on ESPN Plus.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.